Ohio State proved once again they're built different, silencing Washington's high-powered attack in their 24-6 win.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to Locked On Buckeyes Live after Ohio State's 24-6 win over the Washington Huskies. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast and a veteran sports talk host delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And this Locked On Buckeyes Live is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move and Be Moved. During this reaction show to Ohio State's latest win, we will discuss a couple of players that are very big during today's game, my own thoughts about the confusing game plan early on in this game. Well, before we get to any of that, all week we talked about how hostile the environment is going to be when Ohio State stepped into Husky Stadium this weekend. And Ohio State went in there, had a different week of preparation. They left a day earlier than they did when they went to Oregon a year ago. And they also had a very specific game plan for today. Defensively, contain DeMond Williams, not allow him to utilize his quick feet and quick decision-making to allow him to be able to move around the field and to be in control of everything. Offensively, it was a little confusing at times, I'm not going to lie, but the game plan worked. And Ohio State walked away not allowing an opponent that was averaging over 50 points a game and scored 59 points a week ago in their biggest rivalry game to not score a touchdown. Washington only scored 6 points. Ohio State walked away scoring 24, and they're proving they're built different. I think that's one of the things that we talk about and we say, but going into the Big Ten opener on the road, it was Julian Sayin's first road start, and there were so many different avenues and scenarios that could pull Ohio State to the right or to the left. But Ohio State stood firm, and they trusted their preparation. They trusted the talent. They trusted everything that they do every single day to come out of this game victorious. And now, I don't think Ryan Day was trying to have the super ultra conservative game plan for the entire game. But what he did offensively, it worked. Like, no matter what we think about it, no matter if we like it or if we don't, if we like the rotations or if we don't like them at all, what Ohio State and Ryan Day did today worked. Offensively, Julian Sayin, finding a way to help him get into a rhythm, allow him to get into a flow of the game, it worked, allowing him to lead the offense to score late and to even have a pretty critical fourth down conversion late in the game that led to a touchdown pass between Sayin and C.J. Donaldson. Defensively, one of the biggest things you talked about in this game was DeMond Williams and how he can be electric and how he can be very, very difficult to stop. And what you find today for DeMond Williams, the Buckeyes kept that young man in check. He could not do what he normally does to a lot of opponents. Now, passing, he was pretty efficient, 18 for 22, 173 yards. But rushing the ball, 13 carries for, now this is also sack yardage factored into it, but he had 13 carries for negative 28 yards. I don't have the sack adjusted numbers right in front of me, but still, he had a long of 10 yards. If that's his long, where normally DeMond Williams is able to get loose on just about anybody he plays, you have to say great job. Also, restricting Washington from scoring in the first and fourth quarters, that's also big too, because let's just say Washington started to get into a drive, get into a rhythm, and they put points on the board in the fourth quarter. In the first half of that quarter, you may say, oh, well, Jay, could they get confidence to maybe string together back-to-back scoring drives? Absolutely. But that didn't happen. And as many of us were watching the game on TV, one thing you notice, and I want to give credit to CBS for this because they do a great job of pumping in the crowd noise, it was loud. Now, what we saw watching it on TV is one thing. I'm not Julian Sayin. I was not Phillip Daniels or Tagovailoa who jumped off sides. I'm not one of those guys that's on the field in the midst of the chaos. I'm not there. And when I hear Jenny Dell and hear the guys in the broadcast booth talk about how loud it is, I believe it. Not only because I can hear it, the noise is literally causing issues for Ohio State's offensive linemen. It's not just the first road game. A lot of these guys on the offensive line have not played in a hostile environment like this. Think about it. A year ago, when it was an offensive line of, the names were Donovan Jackson, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinzman. You ended up having Tagovailoa. and then Josh Fryer at right tackle. Those guys didn't really go into a hostile environment a year ago. They didn't. The Michigan game was in Ohio Stadium. They didn't have to go to Austin Stadium and play as a unit. They didn't have to go to other big-time hostile environments in the Big Ten and play as a unit. They didn't have to. So going into this game, a lot of the attention was surrounding Julian Sayin. But what we talked about here on the show in the latter part of the week was how the Buckeyes are going to be able to handle the noise and silent counts, and would there be Julian Sayin having the ability to audible throughout the game? How would Ohio State handle play calling duties? Would it be all through the headset? Well, what if Sayin wasn't able to hear through the headset? There were so many factors in this game. And Ohio State walked away in this game with a win, and proving they're built different. Washington's rushing attack is normally really good. Now, Jonah Coleman is one of the best running backs in the country. His backup, Adam Muhammad, is really good as well. Speedy guy in the backfield. The entire rushing attack from Washington only had 61 rushing yards on 30 carries, where Ohio State got a lot of their runs early in the game. We're going to talk about that later in the show. They combined for 34 rushes, 149 yards, 4.4 yards a pop, and 1 touchdown. Ohio State's defense held Washington to 2.0 yards a carry. That's another massive win. So we can talk about the macro win in regards to Ohio State's 24-6 win. But there are so many minor wins where the defense slowed down the rushing attack. You contained Demond Williams. You found a way to overcome some of your own self-inflicted wounds, which we will definitely touch on in a little bit. But some of those self-inflicted wounds where you may want to say, Jay, how do you think Ohio State will respond when there is a false start on an offensive lineman? And in this false start, it wasn't just Tegra. Tegra moved, and I looked up there. Austin Sierreveld moved, and Philip Daniels moved when the ball didn't move. Why? Because of the noise. And one of your guys you had outside of your peripheral, if one of your guys moves, you're liable to move too instead of realizing what is happening with the ball. It was loud in there. Ohio State's defense, they knew at times the seams were open. They were able to get Washington was able to get some of the open holes in the Buckeyes defense and just take advantage of them and gash Ohio State's defense. But that didn't allow Ohio State didn't allow that to slow them down and for them to not stay within the fight and not handle all of the adversity that was right there in front of them. This is a big time win. Not only because it's a Big Ten opener, to me, and even in a loss, and I know the top 25 poll for the AP is not going to have Washington inside of it. To me, Washington, from what we saw today, Washington is a top 25 team, potentially a top 20 team. That's a really, really, really good team that Ohio State just beat. A team that is not going to get the respect it deserves because they're in a part of the country that easily gets overlooked. Think about 10 years ago, Christian McCaffrey played at Stanford, should have won the Heisman, but because of where he played and how late in the day he played, a lot of the AP voters didn't watch his games or even think to look into the box score to see how he played, and he didn't get the Heisman when he should have. And so I understand what happens when you play in that part of the country. I get it. It's not good. It's not enjoyable to even think about. But while that's a thing, to me, it's a credit to Washington, that is a top 25 team. Even at 3-1, I would probably put them in if I was a voter, I would put them in my top 20. I would have already had them in my top 25, potentially in my top 15. To me, that's a top 20 team. That's a really good team that Ohio State just beat. While Ohio State just beat a really good team, they also had to overcome some of their own self-inflicted wounds. We will dive into some of those things after the break. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, it was one thing that Caden Curry did throughout the entire game: create chaos, wreak havoc on Washington's offensive line. And no matter if he was setting the edge and staying square and not allowing Demond Williams or Jonah Coleman or the ball to get outside of him, or if he was getting one of his multiple sacks in the game, or dropping back into coverage and being able to play defense and be right there to tackle the ball carrier or play perfect defense in an area that he is not normally known to be. Caden Curry, to me, all game long, it wasn't just one moment. It was moments throughout Ohio State's game that stick out to me. When you follow what moves you, The unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, guys, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you all for tapping and Locked on Buckeyes live after Ohio State's 24-6 win over the Washington Huskies. And in this game, there are a lot of things we can praise, but there are a lot of things that Ohio State had to overcome that led to things we're going to praise. And a lot of them were some self-inflicted wounds. Early in the game, this wasn't an Ohio State thing. You realize that this was going to be one of those games that it was going to be a lot tougher, even for the Washington, because Jed Fish ended up going at the officials in a way that I'm thinking, Jed Fish, what are you doing, sir? It's too early for this. This is not one of those games. And like I told my wife during the game, if you're a basketball and your coach goes at an official, and I would not suggest running on the court or running on the field like Jed Fish did, but if you're out there trying to prove a point and to say something happened that was a wrong officiated call, I would try to do everything I can to stay within a certain box to get in the official's ear. But Jed Fish ran onto the field, had a 15-yard penalty that set his team back. I don't think that's wise. However, I think as a coach, there are certain things you can do with the official that can sometimes get your team fired up. It's a little bit different in football because if you go at an official, it's a 15-yard penalty, but I think I understand what Jed Fish was doing. I also understand why Ohio State had some issues. Phillip Daniels, I understand why it happened. I don't think it should have. Legal hands to the face, putting your hand right there. And there was another personal foul that Phillip Daniels had. Tigger Shabola jumped off sides. And this is just a bad thing in my head. If there's one guy on Ohio State's offensive line that's going to jump off sides, it's probably Tegra. And I don't know why that's always a consistent thing. There are things you can do in practice to prepare for that. But it happened, and you had to overcome that adversity. There were also the things that were self-inflicted wounds by the own play calling. Think about it. We have realized that C.J. Donaldson is not a great short yardage back. While he is the heaviest running back that's going to play this year for Ohio State, he is not the best in short yardage situations. Also, a defense that had been handling Ohio State's run pretty well early in the game. Why in the world would you think that that was the right move? So sometimes the self-inflicted wound is not a flag, it is a play call. Fourth down, was it 4th and 2, 4th and 1? Ohio State hands it off to Donaldson. He gets stuffed at the line. And to me, it's expected. Later on in the game, 4th and short, 4th and 1, what do you find? They throw a pass to Donaldson into the flat, touchdown. Basically, he could have walked into the end zone. And so you find a way to make a 4th and short call where Ryan Day says it's execution. To me, it's also play calling. Execution, yes. On top of that, was that the right call for the play? Absolutely not. There was also a play earlier in the game where I am thinking to myself, it's 4th and 1. Call a QB sneak. We saw a lot last year with Will Howard. I understand he's 6'4" and 240. Saying 6'1", maybe 6'1", maybe 205. I understand the height weight difference, but still, he is a quarterback. And I don't care if you're playing Little League football. A QB sneak is almost a given call when it's 4th and short or maybe even 3rd and short. But for some reason, I don't know if there's a lack of trust in Ohio State's players or if it's a lack of trust in, well, we can hold ourselves back and still win. And so we trust our guys to do certain things, but we don't trust them to be good enough and to withstand the entire grind of a season. Playing the long game, I don't know what it is, but to me, the players call some of the own self-inflicted wounds. The coaches call some of the self-inflicted wounds, and Ohio State found a way to overcome them. One of the things that I saw in this game that was very, very fun to watch looking back after the fact of the game was a drive chart. After the beginning of the game, turnover on downs in the first quarter, the first drive of the second quarter, there was a punt. Keep in mind now, the Buckeyes in this game, speaking of self-inflicted wounds, Ohio State only had one drive in the first quarter. They had the ball for 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Washington had the ball for 10 minutes and 23 seconds in a drive that would have been Ohio State's second drive of the game in the first quarter. It was not. It was Washington's second drive of the first quarter because Brandon Ennis fumbled a punt return. And in my mind, I said it on Twitter and I said it here. We talked about it here on the show. I don't understand the love and infatuation that Ohio State has with Brandon Ennis being the punt returner. Maybe I am beating the same drum over and over and over. I may sound like a broken record. I don't care. This has to get out once again. To me, Caleb Downs needs to be your punt returner. If you want to have a backup, give me Mylan Graham or Jeremiah Smith. I understand Ennis is electric in the open field. However, he is not consistently making the right decisions to consistently be on the field in return situations. Even the fact that he called a fair catch in the kickoff in the latter part of the fourth quarter, where that's great, fair catch, let that thing go into the end zone. You're literally standing on the goal line. I'm also a personal preference here. I don't like guys calling a fair catch on a kickoff at all. I wish that rule was taken away. I understand why it's there based off the safety of the game, as they say, but no, it's just football. If you catch the ball in play and it's a fair catch on a kickoff, you should get the ball right where you catch the ball. I don't treat kickoffs and punts differently. I understand safety, but how many times do you see guys get hurt there? Not as much as you used to. And I don't know what the difference is. I understand that there's different things they're trying to do to entice teams to make certain decisions. Oh, I just don't like it. Maybe I'm too old school for this new stuff. I don't know. I don't like it, and I don't know if I'll ever change. I could be 60, 70, 80 years old still saying, man, I don't like that rule, man. I don't like when them guys are calling a fair catch on a kickoff and they catch it on the 18-yard line. Son, when I was a youngster, I want to get that ball, catch it on the 18 and try to take it to the house. That might be me. I don't know. But right now, Ohio State's drive chart. It was a beautiful thing to watch. After the game, went back and tried to track this down before going live with you right here now on the YouTube. Also, thank you for tapping into the show after Ohio State's win. First drive, turnover on down. Second drive was a punt. Then Ohio State had 4 scoring drives in a row. A touchdown, a field goal, and another touchdown. So for all of the things that Ohio State had that didn't go their way, that were literally self-inflicted wounds, what you're finding is Ohio State's able to overcome them consistently. The turnover on downs, while I don't think that was the right play call for that time, I do think that Ohio State could have executed better. So there could have been 2 things different with that one situation. Different play call, but while that play call's there, you got to be able to block that linebacker, fill in the gap. You absolutely have to. I mean, you're out there. You have a heavier set. You should be able to make that thing happen. But Ohio State, even after the punt there, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. In the 4th and short pass to Donaldson, I think we're seeing the trust that Ohio State not only has in certain players in Donaldson to make plays in short yardage situations, but also in Julian Sayin. Because Julian Sayin, once again, he wasn't able to get into a rhythm early in the game. I think I counted at the end of the first quarter, he had thrown 4 passes. The Buckeyes had 11 carries in the first quarter alone. And it was carry here, run here, run here, run here. And it seemed ultra-conservative, almost pre-college football playoff in 2024 Ryan Day versus what happened in the CFP last year. And I understand why he made that move. It's not needed. And what Ohio State got at the end of the first half when they saw, when we put the ball in our playmakers' hands, Washington can't do anything. I'm talking about Jeremiah Smith, Carnote, Max Clare, even Jelani Thurman had a big-time catch over the middle. What you're finding is when we put the ball in our playmakers' hands, Washington couldn't handle us. And also, let's think about this. Something I didn't mention earlier in the show, Jakario Davis, their best defensive back, didn't go. His replacement was a true freshman. And there were numerous moments where Smith was lined up across from a true freshman in a one-on-one situation with no safety help over the top. And Smith was not even a factor in the play. I understand that it was still a positive play, but make it make sense. So for Julian Sayin to only have 4 pass attempts in the first quarter, and for him to finish with 22, he was 22 for 28, 208 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and for guys like a Jeremiah Smith that have 8 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown, Donaldson caught his only pass of the game, 1 catch for 4 yards and a tud. And also, Ennis had 3 catches. Tate had 3. Claire had 2. Peoples had 3. Thurman had 1, and Jackson had 1. Not only were guys able to get into a rhythm pretty quickly once they started airing the ball out, the ball is being spread out to a lot of guys out there on the field. So for Sayin to have a really weird game plan, as we're going to call it here on the show, he found a way to stay poised, stay within himself, stay cool, calm, and collected to move that ball down the field. One quick thing before we move on to highlight some players that were pretty big today. Julian Sayin is learning from his previous mistakes. Remember the Ohio game, the game before the bye week, where he threw 2 interceptions. One of them was thrown to the outside where he realized, like, that was just a bad throw, bad decision. It could have been a touchdown, but he held the ball a little bit too long, threw the ball late, and it was an interception in the end zone. Ohio, well, maybe that was a Grambling game. That was a Grambling game. Another one in the Ohio game, he threw an interception when he should have just taken a sack. And then another one, he should have thrown the ball away, threw the ball. It was an interception. Where today, what Sayin was doing, Sayin was finding ways to throw the ball away. It was a pass he threw out of the back of the end zone. And I'm thinking, what is he doing? Oh, everybody was covered. And instead of trying to scramble around and hold the ball in his hand and potentially get sacked or waste time off the clock, he just threw the ball away, lived to fight another down. There were times that he took a sack. Well, sometimes taking a sack is okay. I'm not mad about the sack he took. It was, I think, believe in the red zone, and he realized nobody was there, and there was a man right in his face. Where the previous game, he tried to throw the ball, and it was intercepted. No, he quickly learns from his mistakes. So for Sayin to be a young quarterback, and for Ryan Day to really be putting Homie in a really tight box, Homie's keeping his mind right. And it's a lot of fun to watch. It was also a lot of fun to watch Caden Curry, Kate McDonald, Bo Jackson, and others shine in Husky Stadium. We'll talk about their impact on today's win next. This episode of Locked on Buckeyes is brought to you by DoorDash. Guys, it's the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Ohio State, my guy Caden Curry once again showed up in a big way. He finished as a leading tackler today with 11 tackles. He had 3 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. He was a menace out there on the field, and literally Washington had no answer. When the pressure was on, Caden Curry came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Caden Curry is on a streak. And just like Caden Curry delivered for Ohio State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get the boost when you need it. I always reach for my favorite flavor, which happens to be cherry, because it's refreshing and gives me that quick lift before a busy day. I have been eyeing strawberry watermelon. I don't know why it slipped my mind, because that sounds like the perfect flavor to try next. Honestly, I love how fast it kicks in, and it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes live after Ohio State's 24-6 win over the Washington Huskies. And let me tell you guys something quickly. If you're new to the show, new to the channel, thank you for tapping into the show, instantly reacting to Ohio State's win. I've been a big fan of Caden Curry for a very long time. The everydayers are probably over hearing about what he is as a player and his motor and all of those things. But in a game like this, when you know that Washington can do certain things, even being able to slow down Denzel Boston, who was a prolific and one of the best receivers in the entire country, Ohio State held him to 3 catches for 26 yards. That's a massive win. Desmond Roebuck had numerous big-time catches. Jonah Coleman had a big catch too, 3 total. But I think slowing down Denzel Boston was a big point of emphasis for Ohio State, along with finding ways to get pressure on the quarterback. And Caden Curry, I don't say guys are really unblockable. I mean, that's a Warren Sapp, that's a Reggie White, that's a John Randall, that's a Aaron Donald. I mean, those are the kind of guys that are kind of unblockable. Caden Curry was very, 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 very hard to block. And not just with the stats that show up in the stat sheet where he had 11 tackles, 9 of them were solo, 3 sacks, 5 TFLs. He had the most tackles in the game, had the most TFLs in the game, and also the most sacks in the game. Ohio State ended the game with 6 sacks and 9 TFLs. Pretty good day for the Buckeyes defense as a unit. But Caden Curry was in the right spot every time, making the right play. And there were numerous times where he wasn't the one making the play, where he was on the end and not getting sucked down inside on a play action or a read option play or an RPO where he went down with the running back and the quarterback was able to roll out outside of Curry to get the ball thrown. What Caden Curry did over and over and over was consistently made the right play. He was in the backfield wreaking havoc. And it's going to be very hard for people moving forward to try to find a way to slow him down when you also have to worry about Caden McDonald. In Caden McDonald, this is not an everyday thing where Ohio State's top 2 tacklers in a game are both on the defensive line. Caden McDonald had the second most tackles, sacks, and TFLs on the team. He had 7 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 TFLs. And in this game from the middle, when we talk about I think it was on Thursday or Friday, we highlighted Ohio State's need to find a way to not just get pressure from the outside, but to get pressure up the middle. So if Demond Williams wanted to bounce up and jump in the pocket to climb the pocket, he couldn't because it was closed down. And there was one sack he had in the second half, and he was head up. He was nose right there on the center. I don't know what the center was even thinking. Not only did the center get beat, he didn't even try to recover. He literally stood there, got beat by a center move, a quick move to the McDonald's left, the center's right. I think the center thought the guard was right there to take over. The guard was already blocking somebody, and Caden McDonald is right there on Demond Williams, and it was a quick sack. And over, Caden McDonald has been a problem for offenses. And I'm not just saying offensive lines. I mean, offenses in general. If you are consistently getting pressure up the middle and a quarterback cannot climb up the pocket, or if a running back cannot do anything between the tackles, that's a massive problem for an offense. So Caden Curry, my gosh, man. I mean, if there's a guy on defense that can't come off the field outside of Caleb Downs, it's Caden Curry. Well, there's lots of guys that can't come off the field, but to me, Caden Curry, leave him out there for every single play. I know the D-line normally rotates. I don't care. I don't care at all. You keep Arvo Reese out there, you keep Caleb Downs out there, and you keep Caden Curry out there every single down, and let's see what happens next. But also, there's another guy that needs to play a lot more than he already is. He didn't start today. That was a highlight, and that was something that I saw that I understand why it happened. I don't know if I fully agree with it being the best decision. Bo Jackson needs to start. He needs to start. And no, we're going to be beating this drum until it happens over and over and over again, but Bo Jackson is the best running back at Ohio State. This isn't breaking news. There is no all caps words, this just in, colon, with the following words. Bo Jackson is the best running back at Ohio State, and he needs to start moving forward. This is not one of those moments, because we have been saying that probably since the Grambling game. Now, you've been saying Jay was an FCS opponent. That is true. But let's be real. Even against Ohio, it was very clear. The guy that has the best vision is Bo Jackson. The guy that's the quickest when the ball gets into his hand is Bo Jackson. The guy that finds a way to get skinny through the line and to turn a 2-yard gain into an 8 to 10-yard gain consistently is Bo Jackson. It happened once again in Husky Stadium. The noise didn't bother him. It being his first road game didn't bother him. None of that stuff bothered him. The travel didn't bother him. What we found once again is that Bo Jackson is easily Ohio State's best running back. Best running back on the team. And so the numbers don't really shock me because this is what I expect Bo Jackson to do. He was, I believe, the second back off the bench to get a carry, with Donaldson getting the start. But he finished with 17 carries, almost twice as more as anybody else. Donaldson was second with 9. He had 80 rushing yards, twice as much as anybody else. Donaldson had 39. averaged 4.7 yards a pop for everybody that had 2 or more carries. He was the best. Had averaged more yards per carry than anybody else. Donaldson averaged 4.3. Only thing Jackson didn't do was score. He also had the longest run of 16 yards. That's it. The player with the longest rush today, or the highest yards per carry today, was Colonel Tate on the end around, but Tate only had 1 carry, so that's why I didn't put him in the equation. It's clear Bo Jackson is the best running back. He's a big reason why the Buckeyes had 149 rushing yards today and averaged 4.4 yards a pop, and why Sayin was able to really slice and dice Washington's defense. Credit to Washington. They didn't allow Ohio State to really throw any deep passes. That wasn't really a Buckeye game plan. That was a Washington thing, where Washington didn't allow Ohio State to do what they have done to do everybody else. Ohio, Grambling, and even Texas were teams that Ohio State was able to throw 30 to 35 to 40-yard passes against. It could have been whenever they wanted to. So I am not really upset with what Ohio State did as far as the passing. I'm glad they opened it up a little bit. I am upset it started as late as it did, but Ohio State won. We can gripe, we can complain, we can rip, we can poke, we can do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, Ohio State went to Husky Stadium, snapped a 22-game home winning streak that Washington had inside that stadium that dated back to 2021. Ohio State is 4-0. And what's the best thing about being 4-0? A chance to go 5-0. Thank you all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes Live. You can follow me on any social media platform or jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Quick programming note. There will be a show coming at you tomorrow morning highlighting the Buckeyes defense because, y'all, that defense is elite and held another opponent to scoring less than 10 points. We're up out of here on Saturday. There's more ball to watch. I hope you get back to your TV, get back to your drink, get back to your party, and watch more football until you fall asleep. For everyone else, y'all, we're up out of here. Enjoy this win.